The sun was beginning to set over the horizon, casting a golden glow over the quiet Seattle neighborhood. Emma, a young biology student, walked through the familiar streets, taking in the beauty of the late afternoon. Her brown hair blew softly in the wind as she reflected on the day she had spent at university. A passion for animals pulsed in her heart, and the idea of one day becoming a veterinarian excited her. It was a dream that seemed distant, but one that she was willing to pursue with fervor. As I walked, the silence of the neighborhood was interrupted by a soft sound, almost like a lament. Emma stopped, her senses heightened. The sound was coming from a dark alley to his right. She hesitated for a moment, her instinct warning her of the possibility of danger, but her curiosity was stronger. He approached slowly, his careful steps echoing on the stone floor. When she reached the entrance to the alley, Emma couldn't help but shudder when she saw what was there. Amidst the trash and debris, a small puppy with shaggy, dirty fur was curled up, shivering in fear. His eyes, large and expressive, reflected a mix of pain and vulnerability. Emma felt a wave of compassion invade her heart. She crouched down, trying not to scare the animal. "Hi, little one," she whispered, holding out her hand. "What happened to you?" The cub looked at her with a glimmer of hope, but was still hesitant. Emma noticed that he was injured, with an injured front paw, and his fur was full of dirt. The little cry she had heard now made perfect sense. He needed help, and she couldn't just leave him there. "Come here, I'll take care of you," Emma said, her voice soft and encouraging. The cub hesitated for a moment, but, as if sensing the sincerity in his words, it slowly approached. Emma felt her heart warm when he finally leaned into her hand, seeking comfort. With an effort, she picked him up, feeling his small body trembling against hers. "Let's go home," he whispered, as he got up and started walking back to the street. The cub seemed to relax in his embrace, as if recognizing that he had found someone who cared. Emma had already decided. That little being needed her, and she would do whatever was necessary to help him. Upon arriving home, Emma quickly prepared a safe space for the puppy. He placed a soft towel in a corner of the room and fetched fresh water and some food. Meanwhile, the cub watched everything with curious eyes, still a little fearful, but starting to trust her. Emma crouched down again, looking into his eyes. "You need a name," she thought aloud. "How about Max? It's a strong name, like you." The puppy seemed to understand, wagging its tail and emitting a small bark. Emma smiled, her heart overflowing with joy. "Max, then. And that." She began to feed him, watching with satisfaction as he devoured the food, as if he hadn't eaten in days. After feeding him, Emma took a clean cloth and began to clean his wounds. He let himself be done, although an occasional moan escaped his lips. "Sorry, Max, that must hurt a little," she said, her voice filled with tenderness. "But I promise I will take care of you." The puppy's gaze seemed to understand the silent promises she made. In the days that followed, Emma and Max became inseparable. Every moment they spent together strengthened the bond that formed between them. Emma found herself eager to return from university and find Max waiting for her, wagging his tail excitedly. She discovered that caring for him was more than a responsibility. It was a source of joy that brightened his days. As Emma dedicated herself to treating Max, something remarkable began to happen. The cub, although still recovering, seemed to have an uncanny ability to sense her emotions. On days when Emma felt sad or down, Max would come over and snuggle into her lap, as if he knew exactly what she needed. It was an inexplicable but deeply comforting connection. "You're a true friend, you know that?" Emma told him while stroking his soft ears. Max lifted his head, looking at her with those big, expressive eyes, as if he were listening to every word. Emma wondered if there was something more to this puppy than his plain appearance. He had a soul, and she felt there was a mutual understanding between them, a friendship that transcended language barriers. One afternoon, while they were playing in the yard, Emma watched Max happily chase a ball. His spirit was free, and Emma couldn't help but smile to see him so happy. "You are a special dog, Max," she murmured, her heart sinking as she thought about how much he had transformed her life in such a short time. I never knew I could feel this way about an animal. But, like every self-respecting story, the tranquility that Emma enjoyed was about to be interrupted. A shadow hung over her new home, something she couldn't yet imagine. As Max played, Emma had a fleeting thought. What if there was someone looking for him? The idea bothered her, but she quickly pushed the worry aside, focusing on enjoying every moment with her new friend. Life went on, and Emma felt stronger with each passing day. However, she didn't know that destiny had other plans, and that the connection she had formed with Max would take her on a journey full of challenges, revelations, and decisions that would change their lives forever. Emma was excited to share the news about Max with her friends. On that sunny day, they met at a cozy neighborhood cafe, where the atmosphere was filled with laughter and the aroma of fresh coffee permeated the air. "Look who I brought," Emma exclaimed, pulling a photo of the puppy from her coat pocket. Immediately, her friend's eyes lit up. "Oh my God, he's so cute," said Laura, one of the friends, with a loud and enthusiastic voice. "How did you manage to find him?" "It was in an alley near the house. He was so hurt and sad, I couldn't leave him there," Emma replied, her heart warmed by the memory. The friends leaned over the table, admiring the photo of Max, who had his tongue out and a curious look in his eyes. Laughter and happy comments soon took over the atmosphere. "Are you thinking about taking him to college?" asked Clara with a playful smile. "I would like to, but I don't know if that's allowed," Emma replied, a little hesitantly. "Besides, he still needs care and attention." "Of course, you are becoming a real dog mom," Laura joked, making exaggerated gestures. Despite the jokes, Emma noticed that her friends were a little worried. The conversation soon changed tone, and the relaxed atmosphere became more tense. "Emma, you have to remember that there is more to life than Max. We can't forget the parties and the dates," said Clara with a slight tone of disapproval. "I know, but..." Emma hesitated, looking down. "I'm really enjoying spending time with him. He's special." The friends exchanged looks, and silence settled for a moment. Emma realized that they weren't completely comfortable with their new passion. She wanted them to understand the bond that was forming between her and Max, but she felt like she was somehow pulling away from them. "Look, we're not saying you can't spend time with Max. We just want you to have fun too and not miss out on other opportunities, you know?" Laura said, trying to soften the situation. "Yes, I understand," Emma replied, a little sad. "I promise I will try to balance things." Her friends smiled, but Emma felt that there was a shadow of disappointment hovering over the table. They tried to change the subject, but Emma continued to think about how, with each passing day, Max was becoming an increasingly important part of her life. Over the next few days, Emma dedicated herself to Max diligently. She spent hours playing in the yard, teaching him simple commands and tending to his wounds. However, pressure from his friends began to weigh on his shoulders. A group of young people from the neighborhood, led by a boy named Jake, began joking about his obsession with the dog. "Look who's here, the crazy dog," Jake shouted in a mocking tone as he passed Emma and Max on a sunny day in the park. Emma felt her face heat up, but decided to keep her head up. She didn't want Jake and his group to get to her. Max was at his side, seeking his attention with a slight wag of his tail and a curious look. "You know, Emma, this isn't normal," continued Jake, laughing with his friends. "You have no real friends, just a dog." Emma took a deep breath, feeling a mixture of anger and sadness. She knew she was moving away from the group a little, but it wasn't for lack of friendship. It was because Max made her feel alive in a way she had never experienced before. "I don't need your approval, Jake," Emma replied firmly, ignoring her friend's laughter. "Max is more than a dog to me." Jake rolled his eyes, but Emma turned and started walking towards the house, holding Max tightly by the leash. The puppy's gaze comforted her, as if he knew exactly what she was going through. As the days went by, Emma felt more isolated. She didn't want to lose her friends, but she also didn't want to give up what she had found with Max. The connection they had was unique and irreplaceable. One night while I was at home, a storm began to brew. The sky darkened and the rain began to fall heavily. Emma was curled up on the couch with Max lying at her feet when a sudden noise made her jump. She stood up quickly, looking out the window. The wind howled and the rain beat on the windows. It was a scary night, but she felt safe with Max. "Is everything okay, boy?" Emma asked, looking at Max, who looked uneasy. He got up and started walking around the house, sniffing everywhere. Emma frowned, realizing he was behaving strangely. Suddenly, after a flash of lightning lit up the sky, Max ran into the backyard. Emma screamed, but it was too late. The pup was outside, and the door was open. Desperate, Emma threw on her coat and ran after him, the rain pouring down on her. "Max, where are you?" Emma called, her voice lost in the storm. She looked around, but the darkness and rain made it difficult to see. His heart was beating fast, and with every second that passed, his worry increased. After a few minutes of searching, Emma decided to run towards the park. It was the place where Max used to play, and she was hoping he might be there. The rain soaked her, but she didn't care. The only thought that occupied his mind was finding his cub. "Max!" she shouted again, her voice echoing through the darkness. The park was deserted, and the only light came from the lightning that lit up the sky. Then, amid the sound of rain, she heard a faint bark. "Max!" Emma ran toward the sound, her heart full of hope. When he finally arrived at the park, he saw Max standing with his nose raised, as if he was smelling someone. He was wet and shivering, but seemed alert. "What are you doing here, my love?" Emma crouched down, panting, and called him. Max ran up to her, wagging his tail frantically. She hugged him, relieved to find him, but there was something else in the air. Emma looked around, sensing a strange presence. Max was restless, as if he felt something she couldn't identify. The wind howled, and the rain continued to fall, but Emma was no longer worried about that. She had Max back. "Let's go home, boy," Emma said, as she started walking again, holding Max tightly. But in the back of her mind, she couldn't shake the feeling that there was something more behind that disappearance. When taking Max back home, Emma felt a mixture of relief and happiness. The puppy, now clean and fed, seemed more excited than ever, running around her in the yard. But as she walked back, a strange sensation enveloped her. She looked over her shoulder and noticed a man standing some distance away, watching them with an intense expression. Her eyes were fixed on Max, and Emma couldn't help the shiver that ran down her spine. "Who's that?" Emma muttered to herself as she tried to shake off her uneasiness. The man didn't seem threatening at first glance, but there was something unsettling about his presence. She decided not to make a big deal of it and turned her attention to Max, who was jumping for joy, seemingly oblivious to the tension in the air. "Come on, Max. Bath time," Emma said with a smile as she lured the puppy into the house. The warmth of the home and the normality of her routine made her momentarily forget about the man who was watching her. The next morning, while eating breakfast, Emma's cell phone vibrated on the table. It was a call from an unknown number. Hesitantly, she answered. "Hello?" His voice sounded cautious. "Emma? I know where the dog you found is. His name is Max, and he belongs to a wealthy family here in Seattle. They are desperately looking for him." The voice on the other end was deep, almost dark. Emma's heart skipped a beat. "What do you mean by belong? I found it. He was abandoned. I understand. But Max is a very special dog to them. The family is willing to pay a substantial reward for his return. You should consider handing it back." Emma felt a knot form in her stomach. She could barely process what she was hearing. Max wasn't just a dog. He was your friend, your companion. How could I just hand it over to strangers? "Who are you?" Emma asked, trying to stay calm. "It doesn't matter. The bottom line is that you need to think about what's best for Max. You could be making the wrong choice." With that, the call ended abruptly. Emma stood still, holding her cell phone tightly, feeling confusion and fear invade her. What should she do? His mind began to work quickly. She wanted to know more about the family that was looking for Max. What was behind that mysterious call? Determined to uncover the truth, Emma decided to investigate. The day passed slowly as she tried to focus on her biology class, but her mind was far away. Between classes, she searched the internet, trying to find any information about a lost dog in the city. After a few hours of searching, she found news that left her even more intrigued. Missing dog from rich family in Seattle was the headline. The photo of the dog in the article made her heart sink. It was Max, and the article mentioned that he belonged to a certain Benjamin, a famous local businessman. The article described Benjamin as a successful businessman involved in several charitable endeavors. However, what impacted her most was the description of the relationship he had with Max. The dog was described as his faithful companion, and the pain at his loss was evident in the words. Emma read and reread the article, absorbing every detail. Benjamin seemed to truly care about Max. However, she also knew that Max had found a loving home with her. What should she do? Return Max to a man who, although rich and influential, didn't seem to understand the true essence of the love she and the dog shared? Emma, are you okay? Her friend Clara's voice brought her back to the present. Clara was sitting next to him with a worried expression. Yeah, just thinking about some things, Emma replied, trying to hide her uneasiness. Look, I saw you researching that dog. That puppy really is Max, isn't it? What are you going to do? Clara asked, leaning closer. Emma sighed. I don't know, Clara. I got a call from someone saying he belongs to a rich family and they are desperate to find him. You're not thinking about giving it back, are you? Clara exclaimed, with a look of disbelief. You found him. He's yours now, Emma. You took care of him when he was hurt and alone. I know. But what if they really care about him? What would I do if I were in their shoes? Emma replied, feeling torn. You can't get carried away by this. Max is part of your life now. Think about everything you've been through together. Clara insisted, trying to convince her. The conversation between her friends left her even more confused. Emma knew she had to make a decision, but the weight of responsibility on her shoulders felt overwhelming. That night, while Max slept in his favorite corner, Emma sat on the porch, gazing at the stars. The sky was clear, and the light breeze caressed her face. She looked at Max, who was dreaming, his little paws moving as if he was running in an open field. The love she felt for that puppy was immeasurable, and the idea of losing him made her distressed. I can't let you go, Max, Emma whispered, as she stroked the dog's soft fur. You are everything to me. But doubt still lingered in his mind. Benjamin's family could be hurting, and Emma didn't want to be the cause of any more pain. However, the idea of returning Max seemed unbearable. What if he wasn't happy with them? What if the love she had for him was the only thing that kept him safe and loved? With these questions lingering in her mind, Emma decided she needed answers. The next morning, she prepared to meet Benjamin. If he truly cared about Max, she would need to see it in his eyes. Emma was determined to find out the truth, even if it meant facing the pain of a possible goodbye. With her heart racing, Emma took a deep breath and said goodbye to Max before leaving. I'll figure out what to do, my friend. Stay here. Okay? The dog lifted its head, as if understanding, and Emma left, her mind buzzing with questions and uncertainty. The afternoon was beginning to give way to night when Emma found herself in a cozy neighborhood cafe, surrounded by her friends, Clara and Raquel. The table was filled with cups of coffee and plates of cake, but Emma's mind was far away, absorbed in her thoughts about Max. The puppy she had rescued had become a vital part of her life, and now, the dilemma about returning him to his true family tormented her. Emma, are you okay? Clara asked, breaking the silence that had settled between them. You look like you're in another world. Emma took a deep breath and looked at her friends. It's Max. I don't know what to do. He's so happy here, and so am I. But now, knowing that it belongs to someone, I don't know if I can keep it. Raquel, who always had a practical way of seeing things, intervened. You can't just ignore it. If it belongs to a family, you need to return it. It's the right thing to do. Emma hesitated, the pain in her chest intensifying. But what if this family doesn't treat you well? He was abandoned, injured. I can't just let this happen again. Emma's words resonated around the table, and Clara, who had always been the most sensitive, placed her hand over hers. Look, I understand that you created a bond with him, but if you don't give it back, you could end up getting in trouble. And you know Jake and the others are waiting for an opportunity to attack you. The mention of Jake made Emma's heart race. The group of young men who always pestered her about her relationship with Max weren't just a nuisance. They became a real threat, and the fear of reprisal consumed her. I know, but Max needs me. He trusts me. And do you trust his family? Raquel asked, raising an eyebrow. Emma reflected for a moment. She didn't know Benjamin, Max's owner, but the way he had spoken on the phone had left her a little disconcerted. There was a gentleness in his voice, but also an air of desperation that made her doubt his real concern for the dog's well-being. I am not sure. He seemed concerned, but I didn't get the sense that he really cared about Max like I do. Maybe you should meet with him. Talking face-to-face can help clear things up, Clara suggested, taking a sip of her coffee. Emma considered the idea. Maybe, but what if I end up giving Max back? I don't know if I could handle it. Raquel smiled slightly. Sometimes true love means letting go. You can do this, Emma. And if Benjamin is a good owner, he can give Max the life he deserves. With a heavy heart, Emma decided that she must find Benjamin, not only to confront her concerns, but also to seek closure about what it meant to be Max's guardian. After a while, the friends said goodbye, and Emma left the cafe, her mind racing but with a growing determination. The next day, Emma found herself in a nearby park, where she had arranged to meet Benjamin. The sun was shining brightly, and the leaves on the trees gently danced in the breeze. The scenery, although beautiful, seemed distant from her emotional reality. She was there to make a decision that could change her life. When Benjamin arrived, Emma recognized him immediately. He was a tall man with dark hair and a smile that tried to convey confidence. But there was a gleam of nervousness in his eyes. Emma? He asked, holding out his hand. Yes, it's me, Emma replied hesitantly. You came looking for Max. Benjamin nodded. Yes, I'm really worried about him. I was informed that you found it. He is very special to me and my family. I understand that, but it was abandoned, bruised. Emma couldn't keep the defensiveness from her voice. I don't know if his family really cares about him. Benjamin frowned, a look of confusion crossing his face. We care, I promise. We were on a trip when he disappeared, and we had no idea where he was. I just want him to be safe and happy. And you think that means letting him go again? For a family that might not be here for long? Emma challenged, the passion in her voice growing. I spent days taking care of him, and he became part of my life. I understand what you're feeling, Benjamin said, his voice softer now. But I am responsible for him. Max is part of my family. I need him back. Emma's heart sank. She saw the sincerity in Benjamin's eyes, but she also saw that he didn't understand the depth of the love that had developed between her and Max. I don't know if I can give it back to you, Benjamin. He needs love and security, not just a place to stay. Benjamin sighed, looking defeated. I don't want you to feel pressured. If you truly believe he's better off with you, then maybe I should respect that. He paused, as if weighing his words. But I would like to know more about you and how Max is doing. Can I visit you? Know how he's adapting? Emma hesitated. The idea of Benjamin knowing more about his life and his bond with Max was uncomfortable, but at the same time, the man in front of him seemed genuinely concerned. Yes, I think this could work, but know that I will not give him up easily. I don't expect you to, Benjamin replied, a sad smile appearing on his face. I just want to understand. After saying goodbye, Emma returned home with a whirlwind of feelings. She wanted to believe that she had made the right decision, but the weight of uncertainty accompanied her. Upon entering the house, Max ran up to her, wagging his tail and jumping with joy. He looked so happy, so content, that the doubt began to dissipate. Hi, my boy, Emma said, kneeling down to hug him. I'll do what's right for both of us, don't worry. But the words sounded empty to her. Emma knew that regardless of her intentions, The pressure from Jake and his group still hung over her head like a shadow, and the situation was far from resolved. While petting Max, Emma realized that her life had changed in ways she never could have predicted. The connection she shared with her cub was something she wasn't willing to give up. But what did the future hold? Fear and hope were in a constant battle in her heart, and she knew she would have to face not only the challenges of keeping Max, but also the consequences of her choices. Hours passed and night fell. Emma settled down on the couch, Max lying next to her, and a new determination began to form within her. She wouldn't give up on Max, no matter what happened. But now, more than ever, she needed to be prepared to face not only external pressure, but also the consequences of her decision to keep the puppy that had changed her life. Emma felt her heart beating with a mix of determination and anxiety as she organized the fundraiser for animal advocates. The neighborhood's small community center, usually full of laughter and voices, now became their battleground. With colorful posters and decorated tables, she hoped people would join the cause she loved so much. The morning of the event arrived, sunny and full of promises. Emma arrived early, eager to make sure everything was perfect. The smell of fresh coffee and homemade cakes filled the air, as tables were set and decorated with photos of Max and other rescue animals. She had prepared some presentations on pet care and the importance of responsible adoption. "I think we're ready, Emma," said Sophie, one of her friends who had become a big supporter of the cause. Sophie was next to her, adjusting a banner that said, "Adopt, don't shop. I hope people show up. I really need this to work," Emma replied, looking around with a mix of hope and apprehension. "It'll work out, you'll see. People love animals and their passion is contagious," Sophie encouraged her. As Emma organized the last details, she began to notice some people arriving. A group of young people, all wearing t-shirts alluding to animal protection causes, began to gather around the tables. It was comforting to see that his idea was attracting attention. Among them was a woman with long, curly hair who introduced herself as Clara, a local activist. Clara had a warm, welcoming manner that made Emma feel at ease immediately. "Hi, Emma. I'm Clara. I'm here to help with whatever you need," she said, smiling. "I heard about your event and couldn't miss the opportunity to support such an important cause." "Thank you, Clara. It's great to have you here. I really hope we can raise a lot of money to help the animals," Emma replied, feeling more confident with each word. As the event began to come to life, Emma looked around and noticed a group of young people who were not so friendly. Jake and his friends were there, watching everything with sarcastic smiles. Emma tried to ignore them, but their presence was like a shadow, looming over her day. "Look who decided to play animal advocate," Jake shouted at Emma, causing a few people to turn their heads to look. "You think you're going to change the world with a charity event? That's pathetic." Emma felt her stomach drop, but she took a deep breath and focused on her goals. "We're here to help the animals, Jake. If you don't like it, you can leave," she replied, her voice firm. "You're all losers," he snapped, but Emma wasn't fazed. With the support of her new friends and the determination growing within her, she continued to work on the event. The day progressed, and the community center was full of people interested in learning more about animal protection. Emma felt fulfilled seeing how many people cared. During one of her presentations, she spoke about Max, her beloved puppy, and the importance of rescuing abandoned animals. "Max has an incredible story, and I'm grateful to have found him. He taught me about love and loyalty in ways I never imagined," Emma shared, feeling tears welling up in her eyes. People in the audience applauded, and she saw Clara smiling and waving in support. However, the mood was about to change. As Emma spoke, Jake and his friends began to make noise, laughing and whispering among themselves. Emma tried to ignore them, but their presence was distracting. "Look, the girl who thinks she can save the world," Jake shouted, raising his voice. "How do you expect to do that if you can't even take care of your own dog?" Those words cut like a knife, and Emma felt the pressure rise. He took a deep breath, trying to maintain his composure. "I may not be perfect, but I'm trying to make a difference. What about you? What are you doing besides tormenting others?" The tension in the air was palpable. Clara approached, placing her hand on Emma's shoulder. "Jake, it doesn't have to be this way. We're all here for a greater reason. Let's use our energy to help, not hurt." Jake rolled his eyes, but his mocking expression began to falter. "This is just a charity event. It won't change anything," he said, but Emma heard a hesitation in his voice. The group began to disperse, but not before he gave one last disdainful look. "Good luck, Emma. You're going to need it," he murmured, walking away with his friends. With the tension relieved, the event continued. Emma felt strengthened by the presence of Clara and the other volunteers. Donations began to arrive and, to his surprise, a group of people offered to help with cleaning and organization. "You're doing an amazing job, Emma. I knew you had something special," Clara said as she set up some chairs. "Don't let them discourage you. You're doing the right thing." "Thank you, Clara. It means a lot to me," Emma replied, still scared by Jake's words but determined to move forward. The event lasted until late afternoon, and Emma felt like things were finally coming together. But, upon returning home, an uneasiness accompanied her. The memory of Jake and his friends tormented her, and a growing worry about Max began to overcome her. What if they decided to do something more? That night, after a day full of emotions, Emma tried to relax, but her mind was agitated. As soon as he lay down, he found himself thinking about Max. Was he safe? She couldn't help but feel that Jake and his group might be planning something. Doubt kept her awake longer than she would have liked. When he finally managed to fall asleep, his dreams were filled with images of Max running free through the park, his ears flopping as he enjoyed himself. But the joy was quickly replaced by nightmares, where she saw him being taken away by Jake and his friends, disappearing into the darkness. The next morning, Emma woke up with a start, her heart racing. Determined to protect Max at all costs, she quickly dressed and went out to check if he was okay. When she opened the door, however, a chill engulfed her. The yard was empty. Max wasn't there. Desperate, Emma started calling the puppy's name. "Max! Max!" His voice echoed, but there was no response. Despair began to take over her. The memory of Jake's teasing haunted her mind. "No, this can't be happening," she thought, feeling paralyzed by fear. Emma ran through the neighborhood streets, asking neighbors, but no one had seen the puppy. Panic consumed her. What if Jake and his friends are involved? She asked herself, her anguish growing. It was then that she decided to look for Clara and the other animal defenders. They need to know what happened, he thought. As his mind raced a mile a minute, Emma knew she needed to act, and quickly. Emma was determined to get Max back. The puppy, who had become an invaluable part of her life, was in danger, and she knew she needed to act quickly. With the help of their new friends from the animal rights group, they teamed up to take on Jake and his friends. Tension was in the air as they headed to Jake's house, a place that always seemed surrounded by an atmosphere of distrust and hostility. When they arrived, Emma felt her heart racing. Jake's house was large but somewhat run down, and the energy emanated a sense of restlessness. "Are you sure we should do this?" asked Sarah, one of her new friends, tugging at the collar of her coat. "What if they're armed or something? We need to get Max back. We can't leave him in his hands," Emma replied with a determined look. She took a deep breath, trying to calm her nerves, as they approached the front door. When they knocked, the sound echoed in the stillness of the afternoon. After a few seconds that felt like an eternity, the door opened, revealing Jake, who was surprised to see Emma and her friends. "What are you doing here?" he asked, trying to hide a dismissive smile. "We know you have Max. We want him back," Emma said firmly, her voice not betraying the fear she felt inside. Jake let out a sarcastic laugh. "And why would I return a dog that belongs to a rich family? He's better off here than with you, a simple biology student." Emma felt her anger rising, but she remembered that she needed to remain calm. Max is not just a dog. He is a living being who deserves love and care. You don't understand that. The conversation quickly escalated, and Jake gestured for his friends to appear, as if to intimidate them. "You shouldn't have come here. This is not going to end well for you," But Emma wasn't willing to back down. "You can't continue with this nonsense. What you are doing is wrong." She turned to her friends, who supported her with looks of determination. In a moment of distraction, one of Jake's friends, a boy named Ryan, tried to advance. But Emma and her friends were more agile and managed to block the path. The situation was about to explode when, suddenly, the sound of sirens echoed in the distance. Emma's group exchanged nervous glances. "That's not good," Sarah muttered, her voice shaking. Jake noticed the police approaching and his face changed into despair. "Did you call the police?" he shouted, looking at Emma with angry eyes. "You will pay for this." Before he could do anything, the front doors opened and police entered the house, ready to act. "Hands up, all of you," one of the officers ordered, brandishing a badge. Jake, realizing he had lost control of the situation, tried to run, but one of the officers quickly grabbed him. "You're under arrest, boy. We have several reports about you and your suspicious activities." Emma watched as Jake was handcuffed, a sense of relief washing over her. They had finally made it. Max was safe. "Where is Max? Is he here?" Emma asked, anxiety getting the best of her. One of the police officers, sensing his desperation, replied, "Let's check the house. If he's here, we'll find him." Meanwhile, Jake grunted in protest, but there was nothing more he could do. The police, with the help of Emma and her friends, began searching the rooms. Emma's heart was pounding in her chest. Every second felt like an eternity. Finally, after a tense search, one of the officers emerged from a side room, holding Max in his arms. The cub was panting but in good condition, and upon seeing Emma, he began wagging his tail, as if he knew he was safe. "Emma," the officer called, "here's your dog." She ran over to him, holding out her hands to grab Max. "Oh my God, Max." She hugged him tightly, tears streaming down her face. The puppy licked his face, as if telling him everything would be okay. "You shouldn't be with that kid," the officer continued, looking at Jake. "He has a history of problems with the law. Let's take care of it." Emma could barely hear the policeman's words. She was so caught up in the joy of having Max back. She looked at her friends, who were also smiling, sharing that moment of victory. With Jake being taken away by the police, Emma finally felt like she could breathe again. "We did it," she said, looking at Sarah and the others. "We finally did it." The police team began to disperse, and Emma, still holding Max in her arms, felt a rush of gratitude. "Thank you for being here with me," she said, looking each of them in the eye. "I couldn't have done it without you." "That's what friends do," Sarah commented, smiling. "Now let's celebrate. Max is back and Jake can no longer torment us." With a smile on her lips, Emma knew that the Real challenge was yet to come. She and Max would face the next step together, and with the help of her friends, she was ready for anything. When she finally left Jake's house, Emma felt light. There was a new determination inside her, a strength she didn't know she possessed. The love she had for Max and the courage she discovered in fighting for him made her stronger. As they walked back home, Max was wagging his tail, and Emma couldn't help but think about everything they had been through. She looked up at the sky, wishing that peace had finally returned to her life, and most importantly, that Max would be with her forever. When they got home, Emma knew there was a lot to do. She needed to find a way to make Max's adoption official. As soon as the possibility presented itself, she already felt ready for the next adventure. Life was just beginning, and alongside Max, she was determined to realize it fully.